Thank you for joining us for the Tsunamis Mean Business. Is your organization ready? Our 2025 California Tsunami Preparedness webinar. My name is Mark Benthian, Executive Director of Earthquake Country Alliance and with the statewide California Earthquake Center at USC. Our presenters today are Todd Becker with the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. He'll provide the initial overview of tsunami hazards and warnings. Then Ann Wine with USGS will give us an overview of the economic impacts that were studied and reported on as part of the tsunami scenario for the USGS big tsunami scenario. And she'll show a really great video of that scenario, the waves coming from Alaska to California. And then Chris Wright with the Business and Industry Council, Emergency Planning and Preparedness. We'll discuss some guidance and considerations for business tsunami planning. Then finally, I'll give an overview of what you can find and use at tsunamizone.org for this week for Tsunami Preparedness Week and really all year long. Thank you for those of you putting your introductions into the chat. That's where we want to see that. And then again, as we start to have the presentations, put your questions into the Q&A. I'll go ahead and turn things over now to Todd Becker. If you want to share your slides.
Fantastic. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Excited to be here to talk about tsunamis with you all today. My agency represents the emergency management side of our California Tsunami Program, which is a collaboration between Cal OES and the California Geological Survey. We partner with the National Weather Service and other agencies to lead the state's efforts to assess tsunami hazard and mitigate tsunami risk throughout California's coastal communities. We also work with groups such as the ECA and appreciate the partnership with BICEP and our partners at the USGS to help get the word out and make you more informed and prepared for that next tsunami event. So thank you for all being here. I hope you find all of our presentations informational today. So to start my presentation, instead of me talking, I want to show you this video. I really like this video. It's fun, entertaining, and really does cover some of the key tsunami awareness information. And then we'll dig into some of that a little bit more in detail after the video is done.
I don't usually make tsunamis, but when I do, I prefer to use earthquakes. Last name Nami, first name Sue. People don't understand tsunamis, and I'm here to fix that. If you feel shaking, that's an earthquake and a tsunami warning sign. Get away from the water. The first wave could be the smallest. It's unbecoming, but destruction's my middle name. Hence, the next wave could be bigger. Nothing compares to how a tsunami actually feels. You might see water sucked out, like a really fast, really low tide. You might hear a loud sound, like a train in the ocean. Recognize these signs. A tsunami could be coming right now. You need to get to higher ground, uphill or inland. See, I'm already making a difference. What are you waiting for? You won't get a second warning sign? Go uphill because I can't. That's just between you and me.
All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that video, and that is publicly available on YouTube, and so I can drop the link to that in the chat once I'm wrapped up here today. So let's talk a little about some tsunami facts. Tsunamis are commonly caused by earthquakes, but are also triggered by submarine landslides, volcanic eruptions, explosions, and sometimes meteor impacts. A tsunami is a series of water surges, usually caused by an earthquake underneath the sea floor. Tsunamis can come from earthquakes nearby or thousands of miles away. Most tsunamis are only inches high in the open ocean, but large tsunamis may reach heights of 20 to 50 feet along the coast and in isolated areas even higher. Areas at greatest risk are beaches and harbors. Typically, only major tsunamis flood the land and or travel up river channels. Sometimes the first sign of a tsunami is drawdown, an unusual lowering of the ocean exposing the seafloor. The water will surge back quickly, much faster than you can run. However, not all tsunami are preceded by a drawdown. And tsunami can also be tricky. The first surge may arrive in minutes if the source is close, or take many hours for earthquakes from far away. The first surge won't always be the largest. Successive waves may be spaced irregularly from minutes to an hour or more. Just when you think the tsunami is over, a larger surge may arrive. Tsunami danger can also last for many hours and sometimes even days. Tsunamis may appear as a rapidly rising tide, a sloping wall of water, or a chaotic mass of swirling water, often choked with debris, and no two tsunami are ever alike. So, how do we know where the tsunami hazard is in California? The California Geological Survey, working with Cal OES, our university partners, and local agencies, have mapped California's tsunami hazard areas. The maps were updated within the last few years using the best currently available scientific information and represent areas that could be exposed to tsunami hazards during a tsunami event. Tsunami hazard area maps for California are available at the California Geological Survey website, tsunami.ca.gov. You can enter an address or use location figures to zoom in on these maps for more details of your area. Yellow areas are the hazard area, green areas are the safe area. In case of a tsunami warning, natural or official, you would want to go from the yellow areas to the green areas on foot. Remember to know your zone by locating where you live, work, or recreate before you get that next tsunami alert. All right, so where have tsunamis impacted California in the past? About 45 tsunami have been recorded in California within the last 100 years. Not all of those have been impactful and caused damage, but tsunami may be more common than you would think. Some tsunami have been very impactful in California, causing significant damage and loss of life. Most recently, the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami in 2011 caused hazardous currents and surges in California, resulting in over $100 million in damages to marinas and harbors, also including one loss of life. And the volcanic eruption in the Kingdom of Tonga in 2022 produced tsunami flooding along the coast of California, which generated strong currents and caused about $10 million in damages. There were also many close calls where first responders had to rescue people from the water, but fortunately, there were no fatalities that occurred during the 2022 event. These two recent events were also not the worst case possible tsunami events we could have in California. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about how to recognize and understand tsunami warnings. Two ways to know if a tsunami is coming are natural and official warnings. Natural warnings are for when the tsunami source is close, the ground shaking, an ocean roar, or the water receding unusually far are all nature's warnings that a tsunami may be coming. If you observe any of these warning signs, immediately walk to higher ground or inland. Don't wait for an official notification. A tsunami could arrive within minutes, and damaging surges could continue for many hours. Stay away from the tsunami hazard areas until officials permit you to return. And then official warnings are for when the tsunami source is far away. Official alerts are issued on cell phones, TV, radio stations, and NOAA weather radios. You need to move away from the tsunami hazard areas and tune into local radio or television stations for more information. Prior to the natural official warnings, remember you will want to know where your tsunami zone is so you can take that immediate action if necessary. And then what are the official tsunami alerts that come from the National Tsunami Warning Center? This slide shows a graphic of the National Tsunami Warning Center, who monitors events around the Pacific that might produce a damaging tsunami on the California coastlines. Bulletins are issued in 5 minutes or less following West Coast or Alaska earthquakes and within about 10 minutes after faraway earthquakes. Two types of tsunami alerts require action. A tsunami warning, that's when on land flooding and powerful currents are possible. If you hear that a tsunami warning has been issued, evacuate those tsunami hazard zones immediately. A tsunami advisory is also when flooding of dry land is not expected, but beaches, harbors, and low-lying coastal areas may be damaged by strong currents, and they also need to be evacuated immediately. A tsunami watch may be issued when there's time to assess the tsunami threat and there's a chance a warning or advisory could be issued. Wait for further guidance from officials and updated alerts. Remember that official warnings are for when tsunamis coming from far away, when the tsunami source is close. Feeling the ground shake may be your only warning. Before you get these alerts, again, it's the time to know your tsunami zone so that you can immediately head to high ground or inland away from the coast if necessary. So I'm going to wrap up my slides with a couple of the most important things to remember about earthquakes and tsunami. First, as I've said multiple times, know your tsunami zone. Go to tsunami.ca.gov and identify the zones where you live, work, or go to school or recreate. Know your tsunami zones before you feel that earthquake or get that official tsunami alert. Then the most important things to remember about earthquakes and tsunamis is summarized with this image. Don't move during the earthquake shaking. Stay where you are, drop to the ground if you are able, cover your neck and head with your arms, and if under a table, hold on. Are you in a tsunami zone? Shaking is your warning that a tsunami may arrive in minutes. Head to high ground or inland as soon as it is safe to walk. And when in doubt, just drill it out. And then stay away from the coast until officials allow you to return, because those dangerous surges could last for more than a day. And taking some of these preparations helps reduce loss and brings peace of mind. So thank you all for your attention today. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mark.
And then also Chad Cosi is out. Is there a name for the video to be found on YouTube in case we want to show the video to our work? I will actually find that link and put it in the chat.
I actually already dropped it into the chat right
good.
there. So yeah, you go right there. Yeah.
And then you would look up Sue, like Sue Nami, Nami, as that's her name, if you needed to search for it. It's a video done by Art Center College of Design, right, Todd?
Yeah, it was a really well done video.
And at the time of the safer tsunami scenario that was made for that long time partnership. And one last question: how bad have these 45 tsunami been? I think maybe summarize kind of that.
Right. You know, it has varied, like I said, with both the 2011 and 2022, tsunamis, which caused significant damage to our ports and harbors. They really didn't inundate very little dry land. But then, our ports and harbors, there's very damaging currents, tidal conditions, and that causes a lot of damage. One of the more significant ones was the 1964 tsunami that followed the great earthquake in Alaska. And that that killed many people in Crescent City in Northern California and caused damage throughout the state. But that's one too. If you go to tsunami.ca.gov, which is the California Geological Survey website, and if you poke around there, and I'll go find the link while the other presenters get going, there is a tsunami history poster, which you can actually download that for printing it. It's English on one side, Spanish on the other, and it has some great information about tsunami impacts over the last, I forget how many years, but yeah, I'll drop that link in the chat also.
And Todd, I just did.
Thanks, Mark.
Make sure that it looks like this. So
correct. Wow. Mark's quick.
And the thing about sharing or to our presenters, make sure you select the share to everyone if you want the attendees to see. So there's the link to the poster. Okay, we'll move ahead and to Anne, to your presentation.
Great. Sorry, I got everything up really early. So I'm going to talk about the economic impacts of the safer tsunami scenario. That was, and the video was with USGS to have a more accessible product for the public. So the economic piece of the puzzle was with Adam Rose and Dan Way at University of Southern California and Ian Su Wing. But importantly, we also needed the engineering inputs from Keith Porter and Moffat and Nicol, and all the rest of the scenario team led by Stephanie Ross. And when I say team, this is what I'm talking about. These were all the building blocks of the tsunami scenario. So we started with an earthquake source, which then became inundated ground and currents in the water near the land. And all that was translated into ecological and environmental damages and physical damages to ports and structures. And then at the top there, what does this mean for the people, the economy, and emergency responders? And so one of my jobs was coordinating that economic impact block there at the top in the middle.
And you're not sharing your slides.
I'm not?
No.
Well, I thought I did a share.
I thought maybe you were about to, and I realized you were referring to something. So go ahead and share, please.
Hang on a minute. I did do a share screen, but well, I shall do it again. Thanks for telling me. Gosh, that's good. I thought I'd
No worries.
put them up much earlier. Okay, well, I just talked about this first slide and all the wonderful people involved. And then this is what I was talking about now with the building blocks. So you can see that from the earthquake source up to the economic impact block there in the top middle that I was coordinating for this scenario. And all of that kind of interacts with the forecasts and warnings as well. And so the scenario, which is, I'm going to start playing now, it's an earthquake from the Aleutian Islands, and it was inspired by what happened in the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. So a very similar physical activity that scientists modeled. Now the red is where the waves are up and the blue is where the waves are going down. And on the left, you can sort of see how the warnings might have been released. And it aimed at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach was kind of really where it was going. But of course, it was picking up everything as you go along. But there was about 6 hours warning in the end from the initiation of the earthquake until it was hitting Los Angeles. So now you can see it coming along to Crescent City, and Crescent City has had quite a bit of experience with tsunamis, and if you want to learn about harbours being damaged and restored, that's a place to learn from. I came into also San Francisco area in the Bay. We did not really evaluate the economic impacts there at that time because our focus was on the Los Angeles area. But we did come back and later look at that. So for the economic piece of this, the model we bring to bear is sort of a macroeconomic model. So we're modeling how everyone is buying and selling from each other. So households are providing labor and buying products, and governments is also buying from households and firms or businesses are buying from each other to produce their goods. So this is the model, but when the tsunami hits, it breaks some of these linkages and within the economy. So that's the type of model. And then you can sort of see also this ripple effect there on the right, where one business can't do something, which then affects its customers and suppliers, etc. So what were the economic impacts? Well, sort of in a nutshell, the types of numbers we got in 2010 were the largest numbers of interrupting the economy, not how much is being damaged so much, not the value of rebuilding back, but what's being lost from the economy of people as we buy and sell from each other. So it's the flow of money, so to speak. So the biggest impacts were coming from the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which is probably not surprising. Marinas, we had 30 million, and coastal property, so that's everything else that was being flooded, was about 1.8 billion. So that just gives you an idea of how they were distributed. Another way of looking at it was, what if everybody and everything and every activity in the tsunami zone that was inundated didn't operate for a couple of days? So then we got another way of looking at it. So either way, we were in the ballpark of about $6 billion of economic impacts. So I can break it down a little bit. So at the ports, which was a major focus, this is where Moffat and Nicol were brought in to help because the ports trusted that engineering firm. And they looked at the inundation relative to what would be flooded in terms of cargo and control systems. And, whether terminals would be down or slowed down from the inundation. The other problem was the strong currents, which would lead to a 2-day shutdown of the ports, and particularly affecting manufacturing. So we had a lot more going out than coming in from the ports at that time. So it was really the export market that was being affected. And but fishing was getting hardest hit as a sector, and you can imagine all the ripple effects of the fishing getting directly affected and not being able to go out and fish, and the damages that they were getting. And the marinas and the other smaller harbours, there was sort of a general analysis done. So there was quite a bit of damage and destroyed. So you can imagine what happened in Crescent City in the past can happen further along the coast. So we were getting 3 and 5 docks were damaged or destroyed. And this led to loss of slip fees and businesses that are dependent on that marina activity. So retail trade and scenic and sightseeing, transportation, other amusement, food and drinking, food services and drinking. So you can imagine. So in this case, we got a business interruption loss less than the actual damages, which amounted to 700 million. I think Todd said earlier we had 100 million previously for some harbours, but this is $2010, and this is all along the coast. And then the other piece was the coastal property, so any houses or businesses that were in the flooded. And in the Southern California area, this was health, education, and retail type businesses. But if you look all along the coast, of course, hotels were heavily affected. The important story that we had to tell, though, was that it's not all about damage and loss, but there's also a way we can be more resilient to tsunamis. And we tried to build this into the model. So the results you just saw, just let everything fall apart and let all the ripple effects happen. But what say we intervene in ways that our next speaker will remind us to do. So some of the points of resilience were that no ships were diverted for the 2-day shutdown of the ports. They stayed out in the ocean. But once the things started to recover or restore, some of the exports did get rerouted because the ports could not handle everything. But there was some resilience there. And the terminals and marinas, they did have some excess capacity. So we picked that up as not hurting, the economy. And there were also inventories in place. And one thing I tracked down, because someone asked, well, what about fuel at LAX? And so I sort of went back all the way to the marine oil terminals. And there was various ways that we could reduce, the outcome. First of all, the tankers waited offshore. Second, even though they couldn't operate automatically like they would normally, they could be operated manually at half the speed. There was also underutilized offloading capacity, and there were inventories throughout the system at the port, offsite, and refineries, and also at the airport. So in that case, with the 2-day shutdown, it just scraped by. There wouldn't have been a major sort of energy crisis in this case. The other thing we also know is that businesses do take all kinds of actions for any disruption they have, and they can make up lost production time, and it varies by sector. So sometimes, if I'm not buying a cup of coffee today, I'm probably not going to buy 2 tomorrow to make up for yesterday. So sometimes the service sectors cannot sort of recoup what they lost, but other sectors that may be more manufacturing type, they can. So we sort of tried to factor that in as well. So we found huge potential for resilience from business interruption of up to 80 to 90%. So that was really a great message to be able to give, that whatever you do as businesses and your personal lives and preparedness, it really turns out to be potentially quite powerful for controlling that bottom line of what really is lost an economic sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. So we do have some questions. We should leave some questions to be answered live, but because there was a good one. But everyone be looking in the answered portion of Q&A for answered questions by text too. One of the ones I thought would be good to ask you, Anne, just too, is that Chad Cosi had wrote, I had been told for many years not to worry in instance for a Newport Beach, Orange County area, unless the tsunami is originating out of the South Pacific. After seeing this animation, seems the threat could come from the north as well. And you also mentioned something when you were beginning to talk about how this was aimed at the port of Long Beach and LA. What do you mean by why was this tsunami scenario chosen? And I think that kind of addresses this issue too.
Yeah, well, it followed the Great Shakeout earthquake, which had been focused in Southern California at the time. So it was the next. Then we did Arc Storm, right? I'm trying to remember the order of things. Yeah, but there was still a lot of interest in hazards, in particular in the Southern California at that time. So I know yeah, I think that's the best answer.
But when you say it was aimed at, you looked at a variety of scenarios that which would cause the most damage in LA port?
Yeah, I wish I could remember all that, and hope maybe Stephanie Ross would be better person to question to answer how the source finally got, narrowed down. Because of course, yeah, the earthquake could have happened in many different ways, but I do know that it was inspired by what happened in Tohoku earthquake and tsunami.
The 2011 earthquake there.
Yeah.
There. And as Todd answered that indeed that one of the largest tsunami hazards threats to California is from the north. And so
Thanks.
It's interesting how the waves can, come around and not just, it doesn't need to be a direct path straight towards the beach. I believe in some, even in Hawaii, they get strong damage on all sides of the islands because of the way they can wrap around. And then there was one other question here too. The losses that you mentioned, the economic losses, and do you know if those are losses that were filed or paid, or in the estimates for the losses?
Sorry, I missed the key word.
So the losses from claims filed or claims paid?
Oh, no, there was no insurance involved. This was just losses.
Got it.
Yeah.
The actual losses, not the insured losses.
Yeah.
Paid or claimed or otherwise.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Well, we're going to move ahead and to Chris Wright. Go ahead and begin your presentation, Chris.
Just get the slides going here. Are we looking good there? Todd, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and the slides are good? Great, thanks guys. All right, well, excited to be a part of the webinar today and appreciate all of you making time on your busy schedules to participate in this. We're just going to kind of jump right into it. So when we talk about preparing from a business standpoint for the different impacts that a tsunami could have, in general, what we want to emphasize is the fact that businesses and entities such as restaurants, theaters, museums, schools, markets, and large office or factories that contain large numbers of customers or just let's just say people within their facilities should really be focusing their preparatory measures on preventing a tsunami from having that loss of life impact, right? During the warning of a distant tsunami, there's a lot of ample opportunity to be able to have everyone on the premises evacuate, especially if you've done pre-planning activities that have been completed prior to the event occurring. Conversely, a local type of an event generated, a tsunami dictates a rapid response because you don't have the same amount of time. We heard, Anne was mentioning that in the simulation that they ran, 6 hours from the time of the event till the time that it got to the Los Angeles area as an example. And so clearly the difference between a distant and a locally generated tsunami causes different challenges for the businesses that are potentially going to be impacted by it, and of course their staff and their customers. Businesses like boutiques and arts and crafts stores, especially shops that might concentrate on things that might be replaceable, and those types of materials. They should really be focusing on developing and maintaining up-to-date lists of their stock and investigate the types of insurance and other things that are available for stock and irreplaceable items. But we really want to make sure that we're concentrating on life safety and dealing with those issues. But I'll talk a little bit as I move through my slides in regards to some of the different activities that you might want to consider. So what I want you to do, for those of you that are in the emergency management, emergency planning arena, is to kind of think about how you would go about assessing the impact to your organization. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what I see as hopefully a reasonable approach to conducting an assessment on the potential impact to your company. So the first thing we want to take a look at is assessing the direct, really the specific direct impacts that are going to potentially impact your company. So doing things like determining if your company has facilities that are in the tsunami impact areas. So you saw during Todd's presentation that you can run, by address using the mapping tools that are available now. You can look and see whether or not you have facilities that your company operates out of and whether or not they're in the tsunami impact area. And so again, working through that list that you have of where those facilities are, you can document which facilities you do or which facilities you don't have that are inside of those impact areas. You can then determine if any employees that perform critical roles for your company live in the tsunami impact area too, using the same type of using home addresses, running against that type of information within the tsunami mapping tools, and then again documenting your findings. And I'm not suggesting that you do this for all employees. You'll notice on my bullet point there that I'm really talking about you doing that for those that perform critical roles within your company, and then evaluating that, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. The other thing you want to do is evaluate if key roads or freeways that are used by your company and or your employees are in the tsunami impact area. So again, looking at the maps, taking a documentation of where you find that there are potential impacts that you would need to consider and address. The next thing we want to do is take a look at some indirect impacts that might impact your company. So things like determining if your key customers are in tsunami impact areas. So again, not your facilities, but where are your key customers located? And again, depending on the organization that you're with and the type of business that you're in, those could be wide and varied. But again, do you have key customers that are located in tsunami impact areas? And again, document your findings and use that for part of your planning scenario. Determining if any of your key providers of products or services that your company is dependent on are in tsunami impact areas. So again, working through that impact assessment using the location of where you have key providers of products and services for your company. Now you're going to utilize the results of your assessment, right? So if you have, going back to kind of the beginning, we were talking about direct impacts to your company. If you have locations that are in the tsunami impact areas, you want to consider the following steps within your pre-planning activities. First of all, developing processes and procedures for monitoring your tsunami alerts. You heard Todd mention the variety of alerts and the means that you might get them. Some of them being that you would experience them, such as feeling earthquake shaking, or hearing noises. If you're near the coastline, you see something happening in regards to the ocean and the movement of the ocean as compared to normal. But what would you do? Do you have established processes and procedures for how you would monitor those tsunami alerts and how you would utilize the information that would come from them. Developing processes and procedures for communicating with employees and visitors in time of an incident. So let's say you're monitoring and you get a tsunami watch warning. What would you do with that? How would you communicate that? What means of being able to rapidly get that type of information to employees and visitors do you have in place? So developing that pre-event would be critically important. Developing evacuation plans to be implemented in the time of an incident. Again, unique situation with tsunami that we have where, as opposed to just evacuating out of the building, which, in the situation, if you're in a tsunami risk area, that's not enough. You need to, like we would for a fire or maybe for post-earthquake, immediately following the post-earthquake. But in this case, we need to move inland and get to higher ground. And so do you have those types of plans? Do you know those evacuation routes? So developing those types of evacuation plans that need to be implemented in time of incident. And then just as importantly, how to educate your employees on the appropriate actions to take in time of incident. So what do you expect them to do? Are there certain actions that they should be taking as far as, in particular, initially, of course, evaluating whether or not evacuation is necessary? Or are there other things like, well, if it's a distant quake, or if it's a distant issue that's causing the tsunami and you have some time, do you have the opportunity to maybe do some actions within your company to lessen the impact to your organization because of those mitigative steps that you could take? And then, of course, very important anytime we're establishing process and procedure is to be practicing those procedures and processes so that you have a better opportunity to be assuring that there are going to be appropriate actions taken in time of an actual incident. And identifying, as we talked about in regards to the roads and the freeways, are there alternate roads and freeways that you could utilize in time of an event in order to move people and products out of the danger area? Again, looking at pre-event, what are those roads and freeways that are utilized on a regular basis in order for your people to get to your location and for order for product to be moved off of the location? So if your normal routes were blocked, what would you do? Because of course, like so many things, trying to figure this out when you're in the middle of the event, or you have maybe some time if it's a distant event, but still you can imagine, even with 6 hours of warning, I live in Los Angeles area. I can imagine what the roadways might look like, with a 6 hour warning and people being aware of that, gridlock in some areas and other challenges that might be presented. So taking those things into consideration, what, if anything, could you do with moving people and or product over alternate roads and freeways? If you have employees, back to our assessment, that perform those critical activities that do live in tsunami impact areas, you might want to consider these following steps. Evaluate if they have an alternate, if you have already identified alternate employees that are trained and capable of filling those critical roles, right? So what is it that's needed as far as critical roles for your company? And if you haven't pre-identified people to fill those roles, well, maybe now's the good time to be able to start doing things like cross-training or developing a business continuity plan to support the loss of those that are filling critical roles. Again, in today's world, most of the time, companies aren't overstaffed. They're short-staffed, if anything. So you have a few number of people that are available to be able to assist you in your day-to-day activities. And in many cases, they have specific training for those roles that maybe others haven't been trained in. Or, of course, in today's technology-driven world, maybe they have security access to certain activities within your computer systems that others don't have. Well, maybe you need to take a look at what would you do if John Smith, who's a critical employee for you because of the role that he fills and the responsibilities that he has, and he happens to live on the coastline in an area where a tsunami is possibly going to impact. Well, do you have a plan for what would you do if John Smith isn't available to you, such as a backup, a pre-identified person to be trained and have the appropriate access capabilities to be able to do that job responsibility? And then, of course, the other thing you want to be considering is providing those staff members that you have identified as, in particular, live in those high-risk areas, with proper education on preparedness steps that they should be taking for their family and their home, so that they're more likely to be able to get through an event and know the proper things to do if they're at home in the time of an event occurring. Next, let's talk about the issue of key customers or key providers of services. What if you have identified those and they are within tsunami impact areas? Well, of course, developing a business continuity plan or business contingency plan for how you would attempt to be able to continue your, do whatever it is that you get from them, right? So if you've got customers and you got key providers of services, what would you do if you didn't have them available to you? And how would you get your products or services to your impacted customers? And what would you do as far as identifying alternate providers of your product and services that your company relies on? So if you get a widget from company A that is, in a tsunami impact area, that they have facilities in a tsunami impact area, and you're dependent on that, like just in time availability of those materials, what would you do if they weren't available to you because they had been impacted by an event? And again, this is kind of, business continuity planning 101. But again, looking at a specific set of providers of products and services to you that are located in those tsunami impact areas, which might have been something that you haven't done, previously within your business continuity planning activities. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today, and Mark, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Excellent addition to our webinar here today. There are a couple of questions have come in. One of which I want to show the map of that you can see at tsunami.ca.gov. The question about when you evacuate, emphasizing walk, don't drive. And that really is going to be depending on where you're at, and I think the time you might have. If it's a distant source tsunami coming across the ocean, for which there are many hours, you potentially could have the time to drive. If it's something that you're feeling, we really are saying walk, don't drive, because everyone's going to be feeling that. Everyone's going to be getting to their tsunami side. However, what does everyone necessarily mean? I'm just going to zoom in to really show statewide. There's the map is showing that offshore area for maritime hazard as well as the onshore. And as I zoom in, we can zoom in. We've been hearing today from Ann about the port. You can see that in the port of Los Angeles, port of Long Beach, those areas are within the tsunami zone, and some low-lying areas of Long Beach, Seal Beach, Orange County, and this is the Marina Del Rey, Venice area. But you can see a lot of the coastline. It really is just within, maybe 100 feet of the coast at most. And as that question answered earlier, like what's the chance of getting in the green area? These are really done at 1,000-year recurrence intervals in terms of the types of tsunamis that might happen. So it's quite a low chance. And as also, as Todd mentioned, even these yellow areas are beyond the actual expected inundation zone. They're kind of mapped to go along easily recognizable boundaries like streets and roads. So it's going even a little bit far. So in many cases, all the way along the coast, your evacuation may be just walking a couple blocks. So needing to drive that far is not as much. And presumably in some of these areas, the height of the water is not going in that far. And so you're not necessarily having, a huge wall of water if it's only going that far in the studies that have been done. So again, if you have time and you have a lot you'd want to get out of the area, you might consider driving, but I will complicate things once everybody's doing that, as has been mentioned in the driving. So
yeah, and Mark, I know we heard at a previous session about the also taking advantage of those that you have in your neighborhood, right? In regards to, I think there was a school down in Newport Beach that was right on the coastline, and they were talking about the fact that they had arranged with a local church that had a
Right,
multi-story
there you go.
building that they would just evacuate and go to the second floor of one of that church's buildings in order to be able to get to a safe location. Because again, the inundation that is potential within that area isn't like up above the second story of a building. And so that type of action would be possible for them because they didn't have that type of facility available to them at their normal school location. And you can imagine the challenge of moving a large number of children in the middle of an event like this. And they were, it was quite a distance. I forget how far it was, but it was many blocks that they would have to go to get out of the potential impact zone. But just doing something like going to a higher area, like the second floor of a school or of that church, was a
Yeah.
good mitigated action to put in place prior to the event.
Thanks, Chris. Zaid, you mentioned a link to the animation shown earlier. If you could uh, put in the chat which animation, because I'm not sure, and I'll answer that for everybody in the chat. So just describe the chat you're looking for. Question to Todd: any good apps, really quickly, so we're running it low on time, for tsunami alerts? How do people get their tsunami alerts usually?
Right. One of the best ways you can get the tsunami alerts is often to sign up for alerts through your local city or county emergency management. They often will relay those, and there are apps that help push that out. The other best source is to go to tsunami.gov, which is the National Tsunami Warning Center website, and there they post all the tsunami alerts for all the tsunami alerts. Just you need to pay attention when you're looking for alerts there. It's the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska, that issues alerts for California. And if you dig around on that page, there's also information about how you can get alerts through X and Facebook, through your social media. And those all come out pretty rapidly quick. I mean, at the same time as they're sending out all the other alerts. So they're pretty reliable and fast. But yeah, look into those local alerting networks because I mean, and they're really good for getting all kinds of information, your multi-hazard, fire, flood, etc.
But if you feel strong shaking and you're near the coast, that's your natural warning. And you probably won't get you may not get an official warning in those situations before the wave arrives. And for more distant ones, for large earthquakes around the Pacific Rim, you would have several hours. And then one other question. How do you evaluate if your multi-story building would hold up if the lower stories are hit by water?
I think that's a question to ask a building engineer to evaluate if you have concern about the capability of the building with withstanding the water. Again, it would certainly depend on where that building is located and again looking at inundation zones and things like that because we're and Todd, obviously you speak better to this than me, but we're most likely not talking about a wall of water, right? Like banging into a building with a level of force compared to just water rising and then having the water pressure that would be on that lower level of the building. But I don't know, Todd, can you talk to that maybe better than I can?
Yeah, I guess my short answer and safe answer would be it really depends. It depends on the location. And it does require, unfortunately, an engineering analysis to really make that decision because our building codes have not up until this point in time been designed to address tsunami hazard issues. So yeah, it's right. Unfortunately, you would have to reach out to an engineer to try to make that evaluation.
All right, I'm just going to jump in with a quick overview of ways to participate in Tsunami Week this week and year round. Uh, of course, some with the Earthquake Country Alliance. If you aren't a member yet, you can join us at earthquakecountry.org/join. Uh, we our mission is to improve earthquake and tsunami resilience with support from Cal OES FEMA and others that, including for our tsunamis webinar or tsunami website, tsunamizone.org, which it's basically was set up to be like the shakeout website where people can register their activities throughout the year but in this case for tsunamis. So we've been managing that since about 2014, not only for California, but a big exercise in the Caribbean, and other states are involved as well. And just also point out, we have the 7 steps to earthquake safety, which does include tsunami guidance, especially in step 6, what to do if you need to evacuate. If you haven't seen this before, it's the way we organize all our materials, including guidance in 16 languages. And we're working on expanding the resources we have in multiple languages for tsunami guidance too. California Tsunami Preparedness Week has been kind of growing with, of course, less participation during COVID, but also kind of a drop last year. But however, we are actually at an all-time high now, and hope to continue this year to reach more than 500,000 participants. Your registering your organizations to participate will be a big help in doing that, inspiring others to join as well. And you're basically, whatever you're doing to reach your employees, your customers, your constituents, and engaging them in learning opportunities or in actual activities like drills or tsunami walks, these types of events, which we have going on throughout the state this week. And you can look at the calendar on the tsunamizone.org site in the news section to see those events. And we do provide hazard zone information for key coastal regions in U.S. territories, including for California. We have a number of resources you can use for your social media or for handouts, for events and guidance, and that you can get through their website or email us at info@tsunamizone.org. If you have any requests for things, if we have them in stock, we can send some to you. We have a postcard with information. We have some luggage tags for your go bags for tsunami themed, a new important document holder as well. And there's different ways you can participate with Shakeout. It's mostly doing the basic self-protection guidance of drop, cover, hold on, or lock, cover, hold on if you're in a wheelchair. But we open that up as there's not everybody can do like the tsunami drill, walking your evacuation route if you're not right at the coast. So we really do encourage everyone to participate statewide, because people do visit the beach or go there for work or other reasons. And so everybody should know whether they're in the zone or not, and what to do if they were to be there. And this is just some of the activities you can do, including attending a webinar. So each of you right now could go and register that you participated at tsunamizone.org because you were here on the webinar, but hopefully you might do other things as well. And it's a very simple form, including what you can say, whether you did your activity during one of the tsunami exercises throughout the year, or just kind of separately from that. And this total is not current. This is from last year, but yeah, we're over 420,000 right now. And with your participation and your activities, if you haven't registered yet, we will surely exceed that 500,000 participants this year. And we also do break that down by county and region and by category, so you can see events. This is an example of the list we have. You can go to tsunamizone.org/calendar. See things coming up. For example, in Santa Barbara, they're doing some tsunami walks from beaches on this Thursday. And it's not on this list, it's last year's. This Saturday, City of Long Beach doing a big tsunami walk. This whole week up in the North Coast, lots of activities as they have significant tsunami hazard up by where Todd lives, up by Eureka in that area, Humboldt, Del Norte, Mendocino County. And a lot of information, like I said, in addition, on the California page, at tsunamizone.org/California, a lot of the resources and maps and posters and various things, and of course, how to know your zone. And really, we encourage everybody anywhere to participate. register your employees, your number of whether it's you're a business or government agency. Even if you send out some messaging to them so that they're learning what to do, that can be counted. And we appreciate your participation today on the webinar. We've gone through the questions in the Q&A. Definitely look there before we close down. The answered questions, there may be some links there, and also in the chat that you might have missed. I'll put this again, the link to the survey. Just 1 second. Please do click this. It will not take you too long at all to answer a few questions. And there it is in the chat. Click that link. We appreciate it. And just some final links again where you want to go. Tsunamizone.org. Go ahead and go and register yourself and your organization and find the resources available to you there. Just want to final thanks to our presenters today,
Hey,
Todd,
Mark.
and Chris. Yes,
Can
Chris.
I real quickly, can I promote an upcoming BICEP event?
Sure.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Great.
And if anybody wants to put another question in the Q&A, we can stay on to answer it.
Yeah, we've got an exciting event coming up in April. Again, it's not specifically tsunami related, but from a planning standpoint, we've got an event called Evaluating Emergency Management with AI, obviously with all the artificial intelligent tools and things that are coming out there. It's a lot of applications. So we have an expert in the arena that's going to help us understand how to use AI to enhance disaster preparedness and response. And so information's on the screen. You can go to bicep.org. And I think you'll find the 90-minute presentation to be very enlightening in regards to giving you an idea of some of the tools that are available to you and how they are being currently used, and maybe plant some seeds of thought in regards to how you might be able to apply this to a wide variety of planning, not just tsunami.
And if you're not a member of BICEP while you're on that website, I put in the link in the chat. Check out BICEP, and it might be a group you might want to join.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
And looks like no further questions. Thank you all for joining us today. And thanks again to our speakers. Everyone have a great rest of your day and Tsunami Preparedness Week.